2022 was a huge year for inflation, and we all felt it in our wallets. Everything got more expensive, and it wasn't a subtle shift. Groceries were up, insurance premiums jumped, property taxes climbed. Even a quick stop at the gas station or pharmacy cost more because that year brought a 9% inflation spike, the highest we'd seen in 4 decades. Hit that thumbs up button if you felt the shock of that increase. It was major. We can point to a dozen causes: supply chain breakdowns, labor shortages, stimulus spending, rising wages, and global conflict. But the fact is, prices went up, and they didn't come back down. That jump created a new baseline, and we're all living in it today. And from here, it'll keep climbing. We know that for sure. Inflation guarantees the cost of living will continue to rise over time. But here's what almost no one realizes. Inflation penalizes predictability. Welcome back. And if we haven't met, I'm Demetriades, a financial advisor based in Pampa, Texas. My job is to help people make informed financial decisions, especially as they prepare for and live through retirement. Today, we're going to talk about why inflation matters more in retirement than it ever did while you were working. And more importantly, why the most common retirement strategies often make you more vulnerable to inflation, not less. Also, I've got a free guide linked in the description called Preserve and Protect Retirement Risk Readiness. And you'll want to grab that because it discusses the inflation penalty and other risks. If you're like most people, the moment you retire is the moment that penalty becomes real. When you're working, inflation is inconvenient, but you've got ways to absorb it. Raises, bonuses, business income, even just the flexibility to take on more hours if things get a little too tight. But in retirement, you lose a lot of that flexibility. Your income is more or less fixed. You've got Social Security, maybe a pension, and the rest of your income comes from portfolio withdrawals. So when costs rise and your income doesn't, something has to give. And for people following a fixed withdrawal strategy, it's usually not the portfolio that changes. It's the lifestyle. You keep drawing the same amount every month, even as everyday expenses climb. You pass on the vacation, you postpone the home project, you spend less on giving or the family. Your retirement starts to shrink, not on a spreadsheet, but in your real life. And that's what inflation really does. It doesn't empty your accounts. It chips away at how you live, one adjustment at a time, until the retirement you planned starts to feel smaller than you thought it would. And that leads us to the bigger issue. Most retirement plans are built for stability, predictable income, predictable spending, predictable assumptions. And when you lay it out on paper, it makes perfect sense. You model out your future expenses, add a 2% inflation factor, build a withdrawal strategy, stick to it. But here's the truth. Inflation doesn't work that way. It doesn't rise at 2% like clockwork. Instead, it comes in waves. Hits one part of your budget harder than another, jumps unexpectedly, then levels out, then jumps again. So what happens when your plan doesn't adjust to the way inflation really works? It stops helping you live well. You keep following the same strategy, the same withdrawals, the same projections, even as the cost of everything around you climbs. The plan holds its shape, but only because you start giving things up to make it fit. You travel less, delay upgrades, cut back on the parts of retirement that were supposed to feel free. It still works, but only if you lower your standard of living. That's what I mean when I say inflation penalizes predictability. A rigid plan doesn't protect you from change. It expects you to absorb it. Let me give you a real-world example. You retire and set up your income plan. You're drawing $6,000 a month. You've got a budget. It works and it feels solid. But 2 years later, your insurance premium is up 20%. Groceries cost $200 more a month. And now your actual spending is closer to $6,500. But your plan is still drawing $6,000. If your costs rise above your draw, you either spend less or take more. Either way, you're making a trade-off you didn't plan for. So what do? You stop pretending everything will stay the same for 30 years and make your plan more responsive. That starts with recognizing that not every dollar in your retirement plan needs to do the same job. Some cover essentials like housing, healthcare, and insurance. Some support the life you want, dining out, hobbies, or helping families. Others give you margin when you need to adapt for some reason, whether it's inflation, a down market, or personal needs. When your plan accounts for those differences, it doesn't fall apart when the world doesn't cooperate. You've already decided what can flex and what can't. It also means giving yourself a range, not a rule, for withdrawals. That means building in some margin, setting a range for what you might withdraw each month, not locking yourself into a fixed number. Let's say your baseline draw is $6,000. That covers your core expenses and most of your lifestyle in a typical year. Great. But consider structuring your plan so that you can increase the draw to $7,000 if needed. That gives you room to handle price jumps, rising premiums, or a more expensive spending season without scrambling. Now, if your actual spending lands closer to $6,500, no sweat. $5,500, even better. Either way, you're still inside your range. The plan absorbs it. The key is that you're not reacting to pressure. You've already accounted for it. That extra margin gives you options, and options give you control. Think of spending like water pressure. Just because the faucet can run faster doesn't mean you need to keep the tap wide open all the time. But you want the flow to be there when you need it. And finally, think about how to generate income outside those fixed sources we mentioned earlier. It's wise to have income streams that aren't tied to the market or rigid withdrawal schedules. That could be rental income, part-time work, or something you do seasonally or on the side. Flexible income streams help you absorb unexpected costs without having to pull more from your investments. And that helps protect your plan because you're not spending smarter, you're replacing what you use. Do you have income sources outside your investments? Let me know in the comments what's working for you. The goal here is to be more agile because in a high inflation world, a rigid plan breaks first. The good news is your plan doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be responsive. That's what gives you the freedom to keep living the life you planned without constantly second guessing whether you can afford it. I'm Keith Demetriades. Thanks for joining me today. If this video gave you something to think about, hit like and subscribe and share it with someone else who wants to make smarter decisions in retirement. Real wealth starts with real life. Don't just plan the numbers, plan the life.